We're hoping that a lot of issues that we work on, there would be a kind of awareness raised about those issues, and we also want to bring a lot of concerns that we have related to our issues to the delegates who are attending the conference. We have been working with the statements that are issued during CBD, and we try to make interventions as a coalition of NGOs called CBD Alliance. So particularly looking at this time on indigenous and local communities conserved areas and how they would help achieve the Aichi targets, particularly Aichi Target 11. So we are trying to bring groups together to see how these goals can be achieved in different nations, what kind of policy changes are required to achieve this target through ICCAs.
When you talk about interventions, give me some examples of effective interventions that have been taken up in the past.
In fact, the whole issue of ICCAs coming into CBD decisions has been an intervention of this group of individuals and organizations who have been linked with CBD for a very long time. And recently, a couple of years back, they all came together and formed a consortium called ICCA Consortium. And they have been consistently interacting with CBD and bringing about the concerns of the local communities, saying conservation is very important, but so are the livelihoods of people. And in fact, conservation and people are very, very closely linked. So, and this is what now, if you look at the protected area program of work of CBD, it has many decisions which directly relate to the rights of the local communities and indigenous peoples, importance of indigenous peoples and local communities conserved areas to achieve goals of conservation, and all of these have been brought into these decisions because of the interventions made by the NGOs.
That brings me to the next question. It's the way you look at it. But in the context of developing country like India, conservation, it could be a scenario of conservation versus livelihood. So how difficult is this challenge? Economic growth, the needs of the people, and conservation. And we're also talking about local communities, because I'm assuming that you also work in close tandem with them. They derive a lot of livelihood. They depend on natural resources and common property resources for their livelihood needs, and how difficult is it to strike a balance and teach them about the importance of conservation?
I mean, first of all, I would like to say that very often we don't really need to teach them the importance of biodiversity. They do understand what is the importance, and in fact they understand it far better than we do. Because we are so disconnected with our resources, we don't know where our food is coming from, where our water is coming from. They are very close to the rivers which are getting polluted or which are getting dammed. So anything that happens to that river or that natural resource is immediate consequence to them. Whereas we are like omnivorous community which can get our resources. If one river is damaged, we can always get water from another river. For example, around Bombay city, right now there are more than 10 dams planned, which are all to meet the drinking water requirement of Bombay city. Whereas to build those dams, the livelihoods and resources of hundreds of communities around are being impacted. So I'm not sure it's so much about, this is about probably unlimited consumption of certain section of human society, which is then putting enormous amount of pressure on natural resources in general and other section of society both. But if there are numerous examples, and that's what one of our focus areas is, where local communities are actually conserving the resources, sustaining their livelihoods from that, and if they're given rights and access to those resources, they even have potential to earn economic benefits. So instead of you having centralized control over resources, which then generate economic benefits at the expense of certain communities, then taking those resources somewhere and then redistributing, which comes in a very unjust and unfair manner to the local communities. If the control was decentralized, the economies were decentralized with certain framework of regulation, I think it wouldn't be people versus environment debate at all. It's more about how equitably you distribute power, distribute responsibilities, and distribute resources.